This is a conversation with Bolaji Okunnu. I gotta pronounce the Nigerian names real proper. Bolaji is a lawyer. He has a law firm called Okunnu Law Group, and he has worked on deals, sync deals, cannabis deals, brand deals, licensing deals, record deals, with artists like Monaleo, Maxo Kream, Davido, Finesse 2 times, OG Bobby Billions, just a lot of different people. So he just drops a lot of game, drops a lot of knowledge on the music business, and from his perspective. All right, so welcome. I have the legend, the one, the only, Bolaji Okunnu, lawyer extraordinaire. You didn't have to shave for this. You didn't have to shave for this, right?
Yo, I totally did not shape for this.
Well, I like that you put the Esquire in there, so they know you're a lawyer.
Man, I
Look
had
up,
to. I was
just
like, yo, I gotta come official.
if anyone's watching on YouTube, Bolaji usually does not look this young. He usually looks like an old man because he is an old man. No, all right,
I feel really young.
you do.
It's crazy.
So this is good because I feel like most people I've had so far, like I kind of have a good sense of their story. But low key, you're a reclusive one. Like I feel like we both grew up in Houston. I think Alief whole thing. I know you because you were around. I don't know if you were part of Cream or you were around Cream and them, but Maxo, Toby, and them. And I feel like I woke up one day and I just saw that you were just Mr. Rolls Royce, just Mr. You got this law degree, you're clearing records. So what was that path? Because like the point of this podcast is really like there, some careers are pretty cut and dry. If you want to go be a nurse, okay, I go take this course. If you want, but certain careers, I've been talking to a lot of people, actors, influencers, TV writing. It's not so cut and dry. So it's like, how do you get there? And you are a lawyer, but you have a very specific practice where you do a lot of music stuff.
Right. hmm And honestly, that exact premise of your question is a reason of why I went to law school in the first place. Just being around that whole, being around that whole energy or that whole what ecosystem, of like Maxo, Toby, getting that first taste of like what the music business was supposed to be like, but not exactly knowing what role I wanted to play in it, along with, being also knowing that I wanted to stand, as like an independent giant on my own, like when I look at my future, made that decision for me going to law school. And law school was just something I always tell law students, or other people that ask me like, hey, why be a lawyer? Why choose being a lawyer? And I just feel like the law degree is the one degree that you could get in America that is, you stand on the side of the fence that's like, yo, fuck school, never going to fucking school, want to do whatever the fuck I want, go get a law degree. If you also admire education and you want to be the most fluid and educated and posh motherfucker on the planet, go get a law degree as well. And it just gives you the ability to honestly like do whatever the fuck you want to do, and it gives you a license to print money. And
Wow.
that's why I ultimately went to law school. Yeah.
Wait, but where'd you go?
I went to Thurgood Marshall at TSU in Houston.
Okay, see, I feel like at least I remember reading articles over the past several years where it was like law school, if you don't go to like a top 5, then it starts to not be worth it. But obviously yours has been very worth it. So like, how are you able to make your practice?
I think it depends on the path. I tell people that there are two different types of lawyers, and I take it back to like primitive society. So we could talk about like the role of hunters and skinners in society, right? When you look at a primitive society, like you have a village and they break everyone into everyone has different roles and niches, right? You have the hunters and you have the skinners, right? The hunters are very important because they go out into the field and they hunt the food. If the hunters go out into the field, if they don't bring home any kill, the whole village doesn't eat. The skinners are also equally as important because you have the skinners there and they skin the food alive. They make sure there are no poisonous herbs or anything that are being used to make the food, and the whole village is still able to feed, right? It's the same thing as, okay, when I get this law degree, right, or where do I get it from? If I want to be a hunter, right, and I want to go out, grab clients on my own, do whatever the fuck I want to do, it really doesn't fucking matter where I get my law degree from because I'm not applying for anybody's job. No one is coming to give me, a grade scale and say like, hey, we can't hire you because we got that lawyer from Harvard, with a 4.0
Yeah.
GPA,
It
coming
was like it
in.
was like a 3 point. It was 3 point. It was like a 3.7. It was like a 3.7.
So no one
Um,
is coming to me to talk about any GPAs. So I'm on the hunter side. Now if I'm a Skinner, now I'm going to like big law. I'm going to work in the DA's office. I'm going to go be in-house counsel at Disney, in-house counsel at Netflix, or any of the Fortune 500 companies, right? Now, and that premise, where you go to law school matters, who you know matters, a lot of other different factors matter, right? Because now you're getting into the game in the basis of these are players that are already playing it, while I'm getting into the game and I'm looking for people that need my skill,
yeah.
so so it's like a completely different playing field, and which is why when I went to TSU, I heard all the rumors like, oh, nobody don't go to TSU, this and that, but I just knew all I wanted was this piece of paper back here. Once I got this piece of paper that says, hey, Bolaji Okunnu the lawyer, I knew I could do whatever the fuck I want to do after that. And I think that
What?
was this part for me.
Wow, I mean that's amazing. So what was like your favorite class and like what class like really stood out for you? Well, I have a guess in mind, but you tell me.
In law school,
Yeah.
but I actually like constitutional law for some weird fucking reason. I don't know why, but that was my favorite class.
I
Shout out
thought
to
I was gonna say contracts. I was gonna say contracts. I know you working on so many contracts.
Man, I'll be real with you, like, bro. Okay, so there's a crazy thing about like the whole process of being a lawyer, right? And the craziest part is, okay, from the jump, what you learn to take your LSAT has nothing to do with being in law school. And all the shit that you do in law school, the exams that you take and everything, all the knowledge that you gain, it honestly has nothing to do with like when you practice. Like it's very fucking weird. And which is why I think a lot of law students like do so well during law school, but they're also unable to pass the bar exam. I think they're unable to like really navigate, that all that information that they've learned and put it into like a practical perspective. That's where you end up hearing the phrase of like thinking like a lawyer. Do you have the ability to think like a lawyer? So I feel like for me, like contract law, it was cool. Like I learned like the basic four corners of a contract, offer, consideration, and acceptance. I learned that. But when it comes to, hey, let's do a deal with with Moneybag Yo over here, or do a deal with whoever, none of that shit like translates over. Even like my entertainment law class that I took, I never learned a fucking thing about music deals. It was more so of like just knowing like the basis of like intellectual property, you know, and that's my take on that.
Well,
So
okay, so you mentioned money back. I mean, so that's one thing. I feel like I go through your Instagram. You've done so many. I mean, you worked at I want to say you work with Maxo, right?
yeah. hmm
Monaleo,
yeah.
finesse 2 times, I believe, right?
I got finesse 2 times as well.
And I want to say I was gonna say a couple some Afro beats artists, but I don't want to get them wrong. But which ones of those?
Also, I have a partnership with another law firm in Nigeria. We actually do Davido stuff. So I actually worked out a pub deal for David. I believe it was last year. So that was like my first, take of, really working with like an artist that's like on a fucking global scale. And it was pretty cool to be able to like spearhead that whole thing.
So I mean, how did that even? I mean, so because you hear about so many artists signing bad deals. So like, I mean, I know you probably charge what like $5,000 per hour, but what if you want to give if you want to give somebody some.
Hey, you gotta cut that out of the
I mean, I know, you're a posh person, you're very, you like nice things. And
podcast.
you're worth it. So, but like, what would you advise? So you hear all these stories about, people signing these bad deals and, like what, I mean, obviously you don't have time to go into like a whole course, but like, how do you approach a deal? Like when you're doing it?
Okay, so there are a lot of material parts of a deal. Before you get into all the legal jargon, they're pretty, I'll say, don't quote me on the number, but when I go down the list, then we can see if the number is accurate or not. But I'll say just maybe like anywhere from 6 to 10 major things in a deal, right? That lets you know if you have a good deal or a bad deal. The first thing would be the term of the deal. How long is the deal for, right? Which is all subjective based on what kind of deal you have, whether it's a production deal, actual distribution deal, publishing deal, whatever, a brand licensing deal, all that differs. So the term of the deal is the
And
most important.
is that usually like a time or a number of albums, or is it both?
So when it's like an album deal, generally what you will have is that it will say, hey, this deal is for one album plus 3 options, right? And the 3 options pretty much means that the label or the third party that's signing you has the opportunity to say, hey, we want to move forward to another album period, but we'll give you another advance and, put money behind your marketing and everything, to pretty much, keep the show going. Or to say, hey, it's been nice doing business with you, but this shit's not really making any money, so we want you to just fuck off, So that's what the option period is, The option period is never at the election of the artist. The option period is always at the election of the company, right? So that would be like the first most important part of the album period. The next thing that would be important is the ownership, right? Who owns the master recordings, right? Is it going to be the third party that's signing you, or are you going to own the master recordings, or are you going to give them a license, And regardless, the third party signing you is either going to need ownership or they're going to need a license. The reason why they need one of each is because they need the ability to be able to exploit the records, right? Because if they don't have a license or a master, then they can't exclusively put out the music, right? On DSPs, which is iTunes, Spotify, and what's the other one? Yeah,
Apple. Yeah, well, yeah. I guess you said iTunes. Yeah, I guess it's really Apple and
I think this was and Tidal, shit
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
Tidal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
those are like
Jay-Z's gonna get mad at us.
those are DSPs, and then also put it on, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that music is digested by consumers, right? To where once they have that right, then they don't have to worry about any kind of like DCMA or copyright takedowns, right? So that'll be the second most important thing. Then the third thing that you look for, now we start getting into like the money. It's like, okay, how much am I getting signed for? What's my advance, right? And then from the advance, then you start looking at budgets, right? How much of a recording budget do I have? How much of a marketing budget do I have, right? Do I have a discretionary marketing budget, right? And then you start looking at publishing. Do they own my publishing? Do I have a publishing right of first negotiation or a publishing right of first refusal, right? And then you start looking at all the ancillaries, right? Which would be like any like brand endorsements and any deals like that, as well as touring, right? And one of the most important things I like to put in like a deal, because once the artist makes the advance, the only place that they actually make money now, and the two things that you want to protect is their branding and their touring. So with the branding, I never want to just give away like their merch to the label, because they make a lot of money off of merch. Like you see like Young Thug turn Spider into like a fucking $1 million corporation, and so on. And Spider is like Young Thug's like merch for
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
yeah, that's like his artist merch, And so you have like all these other artists that make a lot of money from their merch. Even Maxo has Persona, Persona makes Maxo a lot of fucking money, And that's just completely outside of the music. That's more on the creative side, right? So you want to
I've heard that touring. I've heard that touring is where a lot of artists really, make money.
Yeah, so the touring is like the bulk of their money. So what we do is we put something called a tour shelter, right? And what the tour shelter is that it pretty much says like, hey, when this artist goes on tour, the label is not going to touch. I generally like to get that number to be about 250,000 to 300K. So until the artist makes 250 to 300,000, and then we could bring the label in at somewhere like 7% of like touring receipts, right? So that is definitely something to protect, and then publishing is also something to protect, right? And so everything else outside of that is going to be like the technical like jargon, and where we're gonna be using like language like, oh, is it reasonable for you to do this? Like we'll play like the legal game, of who's the wittiest, but outside of that, those are the major material terms, and like what would be like a major distribution deal,
Major
but
distribution, like
yeah,
Drake and
but
21
all the deals
Savage.
are different, And then, you know what? On this podcast today, we're gonna debunk something, right? We're gonna
Let's do it.
debunk the idea that 360 deals are a bad thing because that's a fucking myth, right? And the thing is like I get a lot of artists that call me and I'm like, yo, I got 360. I'm like, yeah, you got 360, right? But here's the thing, right? So, and I'll put it in like simplest terms, right? So if someone came and offered you a deal, right, to where they say, hey, I want to give you $300,000 to $400,000, right, to sign this deal. Like, let's just say it's for favorable terms, right, for the years. Let's say we want you to sign this deal for 3 years, for 400,000, and I want 5% of everything that you're making everywhere. Is that a bad deal?
I'm trying to think. No, because I mean, you have to make. I'm trying to think because 400,000 times 20 basically is Let me see. What's 400? That's like 5 million, right? So I have to make 5 million,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe or 8 million. 400,000 times 20 is eight
Wait,
million, I
why are you
think.
multiplying it by 20? So this is some Harvard math that you fucking doing right now.
Well, I guess it's at it's at 5%, right?
Yeah,
So
5% of everything. Yeah, that you're making. So it
right,
wouldn't
so
be up to 400,000. So it'll be like this. So all the important deal points that we just went through, right? If they
right,
were gonna give you the 400K advance, but they will make 5% from touring. Remember, I said I would go for 7, right? They make
right,
5% from touring. They make 5% of your merch. They make 5% of whatever other things that you do ancillary wise, right? And then they also make 5% of your royalties. They make 5% of I think once you get into royalties, that'll be it, right?
right,
So they're making 5%, but they're giving you all this money. Like that's not a bad deal, you
right,
know.
right,
So now it'll be different if it was like 80-20, and now they give you 400,000, but they're making 80% of everything else that you're fucking making, and you're just walking
right.
away with 20%.
So
That's
yeah,
when the deal becomes bad. So it's more outside of people just looking at the deals like, was this a 360 or not? It's more so a numbers game, like how much of a percentage are they taking off of each category that's very fucking important to my career, Like so that's one thing that I always try to like educate artists on, so they don't just automatically run away from when they see like, oh wait, do they want a little bit of everything? Like because unless you have a lot of fucking leverage, like most of the
yeah,
time, everybody's signing a 360 deal. It's just do the numbers make sense?
yeah. No, that makes sense. I think also I was doing about 20. So I was like 5%, like 1 divided by 5% is 20. I think so. Yeah, 20. But anyway, I think so. What are the biggest mistakes that you see artists make? Like aside from being scared of a 360, like what are the biggest mistakes they make when they sign deals?
Man, one I would say is like not getting a lawyer. That's like one of the biggest mistakes because a lot of times I have artists come to me after shit has already hit the fan, and it's like, why did you sign this deal? And the thing is like for artists, it's like it took me a while after like doing some of these deals for me to realize that one commonality that all the artists have is the fact that they're just happy that somebody fucking believes in them, and that's like where they really get taken advantage from. It's this artist has gone maybe their whole lives or however long they've been going through this creative process of creating music and putting it out there, just being so skeptical of people liking this body of work that they're creating. And finally someone comes along the line and is like, hey man, your shit's fire. Here's fucking 5K. Let's fucking go.
Oh wow,
Like
yeah. I mean, you hear about some of these deals where they get some. I don't. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but Mason 5EO and just different things where you hear numbers but it's not always the full story. But yeah, I think so. But I mean, are these artists tend to be? Because I know that a lot of labels will sign people when they're really unknown, right? When they might have sometimes they might have like 10,000 followers, right, or even 20,000 followers, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, all of that, like I'll say, it all goes like to the type of lawyer that you have or how you approaching this deal. It's crazy that you just said that. I actually just closed a deal with Columbia like maybe like a week ago with like this very young artist. She really doesn't really have anything out there. I think she just had one song that kind of went viral on TikTok. And her management came to me and it was like, "Yo, Columbia wants to put something on the table, you know." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I saw the offer from Columbia, and I was like, "Man, fuck this," like even though she's a developing artist, it's like I knew the position that I was in for Columbia to want her and for me to see like, okay, I understand her worth and see what leverage that she has. I had to make sure that I set up the deal bigger than what we are in today, right? So I think we kind of like started off the deal at like I think it was like 100K all in, and I drove it up to like 350, and then we did like a pub deal in conjunction to it that kind of made sense. Got her like another 100K, like ended up doing the deal to be at like 450K,
All right. Well, I
and
know when I get a podcast deal, I know who I'm coming to. I know where I'm straight
so
straight coming to.
hey, you're free to go to whatever lawyer that you want to go to, but hey, what's up with your boy?
Well,
I'm
okay,
your guy.
of course. Well, okay. Why did you ever think about the like criminal defense? Okay, I know you talk about like being growing up or
Yo, bro,
no.
I'm gonna tell you why, bro. Being a criminal defense lawyer, it's like if you get into trouble right now, right, and I come to you and like, yo, Damn lawyer, let me help you. My name's Bolaji Okunnu. I've been practicing for 3 years. Give me 100K. You're gonna tell me, fuck off. You're like, yo, what the fuck? No, like you're gonna go look at a track record of some older attorney that's been doing this shit for the last fucking 40 years. Has like zero conviction rate. To get everybody off the fucking hook, and you will give that guy 100K before you come to me. Now, and
Yeah,
my end, it's I can, and honestly, it's like that's why I do the whole fucking. That's why you go on my Instagram and there's this whole like lifestyle, Rolls Royces, this, and that. I just honestly use that to just help my image of like artists like running into me and believing that, hey, my attorney has a bag, so he could get me a bag. You
that's
know,
true. That's true. That makes sense. That makes sense because I see you. I saw you the other day leaving somewhere with a double R. I was like, all right, this dude's this is a lawyer. The reason I asked about the defense things, I know that you said that, basically you were around Maxo and everybody, and I know that
Mhm.
like I grew up like I was never in Kream or anything, but I knew I grew up around that area, Alief, all that stuff, and there was always issues. People. That was always like an element of that area. So I know that you said, oh, you wanted to be basically you saw the music side, and you're like, oh, I want to be a part of that. But I know that there was also other issues. Like not saying Maxo specifically, but just growing up in that area.
But for us growing up in Alief, like bro, I don't know about you, but I didn't know no fucking rich defense attorney.
Oh, of course, but I felt like I thought maybe like you might be like, okay, I see people getting into trouble. The same way you're like, okay, these people get into music. I want to be the one who helps them with music. Like you're like, oh, people are getting into trouble. I want to be the one to help them get them out of trouble.
But I feel like for me, okay, I feel like when it came to that, right? I honestly, I I wasn't motivated by that. I feel like so for me, I honestly have like a real passion for music. Like I really love music. When I was in Nigeria, I would like play the drums like for like the school. When I came to America, I
Wait,
was in the
when did you come? I never knew if you grew up. So you lived in Nigeria.
yeah, I lived in Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria. I lived in Nigeria till I was like 9, about to be 10, and then
Oh,
moved to
okay.
America. So that was like in 2003.
Okay.
I believe it.
So I was six. I was six when I moved. So
Of fire, yeah. See, so we have that like Nigerian like foundation, that is
yeah.
pretty much like what got us to where we are today, right? So yeah, so for me, I always had a passion for music, and so when I looked at going into the music business, it wasn't like I looked at it and saw like the people that I was around, Alief, Houston. I think I just kind of saw it as like a business, like honestly, for me, I didn't even see it on the artist side. I saw it on like a Viacom, CBS, like I saw it on that kind of scale, so it wasn't, so I was looking at like corporations, working with corporations, rather than like working with individual artists. And so when it came to thinking about it on the criminal defense side, like I honestly it never crossed my mind. I was never inspired by any criminal defense attorney that I felt like, oh wow, like they're really living the life I want to live. Even when I watch fucking Proctor and fucking Power, like that shit didn't make me want to be a criminal defense attorney and fucking get killed.
No,
You
yeah, I
know?
mean, yeah, music looks a lot more fun for sure.
Yeah, so
I mean, yeah, music is a lot more fun.
it looks fun. It looks fun, but it's fucking hectic, man. I'm honestly ready to like transition out of like the lawyer side, and be on some like more exec shit, you
Okay,
know.
like manager or like studio exec,
So
label
I
exec.
manage like Afrobeats artists. I actually have two Afrobeats artists I manage right now. I manage an artist in Maradona and an artist in BBK. Are two
Okay, that's why I
Afrobeats.
ran into you with the other day. You were with
Yeah.
BBK.
Oh yeah, Fabulous with BDK, yeah. So those are two Afrobeats artists that I manage. But I want to go more so like power, like do like some power link up, with some guys I've been talking. I've been talking about this shit. Maybe it's too soon to drop this, but me and some guys, like we're gonna put some shit together very soon. And once we're able to like pull that money out for one of those majors, get that JV, and really like hit the ground running. I think it's something that we could really do. Like, if there's one thing about me, a lot of the artists that I have, it's like I believe in them like super early, like before they really had anything really going on. I believed in them super early, and it just took, and it just, I have an ear for music. I actually have an understanding of like how the music business work and how the business of music also works, which is two completely different things,
Mm.
So I just think I'm just kind of ready to go into that other phase. Like I want to enjoy like the life of like working in the music business, because being a lawyer, we're just in the background paper pushing, you know, like
Hey,
that's
but
literally all
y'all
we're
keep
doing.
going though. But I feel y'all keep. But I mean, I'll say the music business and stuff that could be hectic too, though. That could also be hectic. It's a different type of hectic, but it could be hectic too.
Yeah, but I think it's just a lot more fun,
Oh, for
like
sure,
I,
for
I
sure.
look at it as like now I have like an actual corporation I work in, and I feel like maybe I could be like on Succession or some shit. Have you watched Succession before?
Yeah,
You
I
know how
watched a
like
little bit.
the boardroom gets real interesting. It's like, yo, okay, let's power play over here, run this. I want to get more into that.
Well,
Right?
that's a good point. It brings up my next point because I feel like so I saw a comment. I think you posted about your business. You have a business, Doopsy's Kitchen, in
Yeah.
I think with your
Mhm.
mom. And actually,
Yeah.
I always support. I went there recently, but like you posted that, and I remember Toby. So our friend Toby, he manages Maxo. He's in the music business. He has a label called Stomp Down.
Mhm.
And Toby was talking about how you guys always envisioned yourselves, even just as a young, just envision yourselves as successful. And I
Right.
feel like that's one thing about you and Toby. Like your Instagram name used to be Bolaji Conglomerates, which I always thought was like, yo, I feel like you always have had this like you're gonna be an executive. Like, where did
Yeah.
that come from? Like, were you like, did you because where you go to school? And I went to Leeseman, I went to Youngblood, and I moved to like Fort Bend. But I would I was in that area. You went to Youngblood?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
you went to Hastings, right? You played football. I seen a
Okay.
little.
Yeah.
So like,
Hmm.
have you always had? Because I feel like it's weird. Like Houston, especially that area. Like there are certain people who. So this side of this part of town called Alief is basically on the west side of it. Basically is bound by the street called Highway 6. And I say the right side of it is bound by this street. Like Beltway 8 or this
Oh, yeah.
Beltway. And I feel like
Yeah.
there are people don't even really see themselves ever leaving there, or they see like your whole world can be because Houston's a big town or a big city, and your whole world can be in this small part. So what about like what made you kind of always have this vision of like I'm gonna be a boss, I'm gonna be executive, like Bolaji conglomerate, like I'm gonna be because I feel like you're now living that life that you
Yeah.
kind of always envisioned.
Yeah. Man, honestly, I could take it back to the grassroots and said, growing up, like where I grew up in Lagos was just not, like I grew up in like the real trenches of Lagos,
Wait,
like
Mushi? Oh,
yeah,
you grew up in Mushi?
I grew up in Mush.
Okay, I was in Surulere. I was
Yeah.
it's a little
So you're not too far away, bro. You're
yeah,
not too
not
far away from where I grew
yeah.
up.
Shout out Adeni Round Gusonya, Bode Thomas, that area.
Yo, he just went federal. That was crazy. That was crazy. He just went federal. But yeah, man. So like growing up in Mushi was like a completely different like environment, and
Oh
then
yeah, let me for the audience. Mushi is like I'll call it a slum basically in Lagos, right? And it's like it's a rougher. It's like the trenches of Lagos. I'll say Mushin. There's another place. What's that place on the water that's also really pretty? I can't remember the name of it, but
Oh, like in Saleko? Is that what you're talking about?
no, some I'll find it. But Mushin is definitely the trenches. It comes from there.
Yeah. So I think being from there,
Oh,
and I
Makoko. That's what it's called. Makoko. That's the other part. That's
oh,
definitely
true.
the
Okay,
trade.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just talking about yeah. So you know what's crazy? That's actually like where my dad's side of the family is from. So it's like we're like also real like trench shit. Like we're like like we're like real city boys.
Area
So
boys.
real everybody. So it's like from there, and coming to America and just seeing like things just being completely different and just seeing how much easier it was to do things. I was like, oh, it's just easy. And then honestly, where things started changing was when I met Toby and then I saw the way Toby's mom was living, like Range Rover, nice house in Sugarland. I
Oh
saw
man, let's talk real quick about so I remember when I was growing up in Houston, like if you live in Alief, like Alief was kind of like middle, like I say like middle class, but kind of like hood,
yeah,
but like cause like
because
it's weird.
we're on the line.
We're
There's a lot
yeah,
of borderline shit
it's
going
like yeah,
on.
like there basically there are apartments that are really cheap and like a lot of crime. There are also some homes, but there's like it's like a good amount of crime, even though it's not like I'm not gonna act like it's like O Block, but it's it's whatever. And then Fort Bend, I'll say is like a step above that. It's kind of like okay, Fort Bend is like you're like more middle class now, and then Sugarland to me was like it might as well have been Beverly Hills to me, like Sugarland was like Beverly Hills, Bel Air. And actually, now that
Yeah.
I've been around the world, now that we've all been around the world, it's like Sugarland's nice. Don't get me wrong, but I just want to put for the audience, like for the listeners, for us, like us being little middle schoolers, high, yeah. I don't know. When did you meet Toby?
I met Toby, I believe it was my junior year in high school, junior,
Yeah,
senior.
so being like little, like kind of middle schoolers, high schoolers, Sugarland was like for us. If you grew up in Alief, Sugarland was kind of like you made it. Like this is the
Right,
nicest. And like it's funny now that you're around Houston, where you're like, oh, like River Oaks is like there's
yeah.
real money in Houston, like River Oaks
Yo,
and
I couldn't
for
imagine
Memorial.
shit like River Oaks like when I was a junior in high school.
Oh, Memorial, River Oaks. These are like to the listeners. We're over here talking to ourselves, but like these are nicer, like the nicest neighborhoods in Houston, probably.
Yeah. And it's like all this shit like motivates you. Like today now I live in the center of fucking River Oaks. Like I couldn't imagine like seeing shit like that when I was younger. I didn't see River Oaks for real in Houston till when I started law school and I was living in the Galleria. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, like damn, this is
But
crazy.
it's funny that you say that because I do think that like Houston has a lot of Africans, a lot of Nigerians, and I wonder what kind of motivates. Because I mean, Maxo, Toby Nigwe, like what kind
Yeah.
of motivates these all of us. And I think you're right. Like I think coming from Nigeria, you just have, and not everyone lived in like we and I don't know. Did Toby ever live in Nigeria? I don't know.
Nah.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
yeah, but so like not everyone did, but like having that connection where you go like America, it's hard to explain to people what America is. I remember like when I moved to LA, and that's why I love Toby because Toby has always been somebody who never acted like he didn't belong. Like he never like would walk into a room. Like I would be the type of person when I moved to LA, I'll be at a party. I'm gonna get a picture with the game and Ice
Mm.
Cube's son. Like I'm trying, and like I remember Toby was in that famous viral video at the Rock Nation brunch where Kevin Hart's giving his speech, where
Oh yeah.
and
Nice.
somebody say, "Yo, Toby." Somebody replies, "Yo, Toby, I know you belong there because you didn't pull out your phone." Because Toby's in the video, but he don't have his phone out. And I
Yeah.
think that America, when you come from Nigeria, America seems so distant and big to you that
Facts.
like I think it gives you this ambition, but also like it gives you this shock when you kind of get to some of these places.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I definitely feel the same way. I think just the idea of what America was to me and then coming here and just actually like seeing it is I don't even know at what point I actually like digested the fact that oh shit, I am in America. But I just know that I just saw certain things and just knew what I really like wanted. And sometimes I would ask my mom, like, damn, like I look at everyone in my family, no one really has that ambition to want to be like rich as fuck. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I feel like it's some like I think it's almost like if you don't, and I'm not gonna say that. I don't know if I have one, but if you don't have a rich uncle, it's like I want to be my own rich uncle. You know what I mean? Like I want to be like
Exactly. And
my
the crazy
eccentric
thing
rich
is, so my
uncle.
mom's dad was actually like super wealthy, right? And we lived with his with my grandma, which is pretty much like his ex wife. So we lived with her for a while. So we would only visit every once in a while, but I was still too young to really understand, how wealthy he was, right? And after he passed away, my mom's dad was like a polygamist, like he had multiple wives and everything. So, like just that whole fortune was just like not something my mom even wanted to like involve herself in, right? And
Yeah.
so later down the lines, when I was talking to my mom, she was like, "Man, you're just like my dad. You're just like my dad." And it all started to make sense to me because I always wondered because I looked at everyone else in my family. I looked at the things that I liked and the things I like to do, and it just never aligned with anybody. But my mom would always see me do shit. She's like, "Man, you're just like my dad. You're just like my
Well,
dad."
were you like one of those kids who like sold candy and like were you always
Okay,
hustling?
right. I sold
Okay.
candy. I sold shoes. Like, yo, I sold water to a well. Like, yo, that's really, that's really how me and Toby really became tight. Because we were like, yo, we were just ready to hustle. I remember we were like 16.
This
Like,
is you
we
and
had to be
Toby?
like, yeah, we had to be like 16 or something where we sat down. I would never forget is like we sat down in his mom's like I guess like a foyer or whatever we could call it. And I remember Toby was doing homework. I've always been a person that was like good at school, but I never had to study. So I never like studied or anything. And every time I come around, Toby's always fucking studying. And I remember that shit just fucking annoyed me to the core. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is he fucking studying all day? You know? And Toby was the one that actually wanted to be a lawyer for a while. And so we're like sitting down talking that day, and we're like, man, what do we really want to do? And I was like, man, honestly, like, I don't know, but I just feel like I don't want to be like just following you and Maxo and the gang around. So till I can figure it out, I think I'm gonna go to law school. I think I'm just gonna be a lawyer, and that way I could just figure it out. At least I know, like with that, I wouldn't fail in life. And it was like,
Yeah.
man, I want to be a business.
Well, that's cool. What was it like following Max? Because I kind of met Maxo more later, but like, what was it like following Maxo and him around? Because there was, back. I mean, everything's copacetic now, but back then there was all the different cliques and beefs in Houston, and you go to
Right.
parties and like even to this day, it's funny. People ask me what I do in Houston, and I know Houston has like nicer areas, but I low key have PTSD just from like parties getting shot up. Like not even from that era, but just like
Yeah.
it's
All the
not.
house shoes and shit.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
people. Yeah,
Honestly, it wasn't too bad because I honestly feel like the way that my parents really just had me fucking on lock, right? It it caused less of a chance of me like being in bullshit, right? So it was like I never was really just open to mad bullshit. So even though I was in Cream with Maxo and like we're repping all the Alief doing whatever, I was never really just like open to too much bullshit. Plus, the beef would generally be with like people in like Fort Bend. A lot of people when I was in Cream, like it was only me and Lyndon that were actually like going to AU schools that were in Cream. You know,
oh, okay.
no one else was like in Cream or like knew or even really like they just knew that they knew what Cream was, of course, like oh like sneaker group, they got all the heat, blah blah blah. But nobody really there was no one else in Cream. Like everyone was like swagger, fucking
FDAB,
yeah, FDAB, RNS, like all that
Mash
shit.
Mode,
Yeah.
probably.
See, now Match Mode, that was like some Southside, I think like Thor War, like
Oh,
103
okay,
type
okay.
shit. Like they had that shit going on over there. So Cream was really like some four band like HISD shit. It was
Yeah,
really like
Kempner, right? A lot of Kempner people, Kempner High School.
exactly. It's really like just a bunch of people in Kempner. So when all that whole like young high school beef shit was going on, unless like I was at the mall with some people like on like a random Saturday, there was never really like too much,
At first
Wahala
colony.
in sight. Yeah, there was never too much Wahala in sight. It was always cool. So, and I've honestly just never really been a problematic person myself. I don't like to involve myself in other people's issues. And people don't really see me and automatically think like, oh, like this guy's beefing me because I probably just have like a nonchalant, I really don't give a fuck
Yeah,
what you have going on shit look on my face.
yeah,
So
I feel like a lot of people kind of it's like we were like you'd be around it, but not part of it. Sort of not you, but just like I think like the violence and stuff. Although like I mean, how
Mhm.
did you? Because like Kream, like there not to get like dark, but there was like a time when people were like getting
Well,
killed a little bit, like
yeah,
around like 20, maybe like 13, 14 ish, like
yeah,
around the era, like a few people.
yeah, but I think some of them were like none was ever like violence on violence. I think there were like some kind of like situational
Oh
errors.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. There was like a robbery gone wrong. There was
Yeah,
like
they
an
were like some kind of like
accidental.
yeah, exactly. They were like situational errors gone wrong.
Yeah, and then somebody, and then there was a situation where somebody from Cream had killed somebody from some like,
Exactly.
but yeah, it was, but yeah, I mean, well, like, but you were always like not, I mean, you were never part of it, but you were always like around. You were part of Cream, but you were not like part of the BS, basically.
Yeah, I
Like,
was
how
never.
did you? Like, were you just like the person who were like, all right, this party's about to get turned up, I'm leaving now, or like how did you avoid sort of?
But if I even got to go to the party, like shit, like that would be the thing. Is like, did I ever get to go to the party? I probably remember like throughout high school, maybe like 4 parties that I ever got to attend.
Yeah, oh,
That
so your mom kept you on lockdown.
yeah, that wasn't like the homecoming dance or anything like that. So
Yeah, I mean,
I would never even be around the shit, to be
I remember
honest.
for me, like there was this dude at Hodges Band named Ray Penn, like coldest who I don't know, like back then everyone was like, yo, Ray Penn
I
and
remember Red the Hooper, right?
yeah, Ray Penn and Tommy Mason Griffin. Like the debate in Houston was like who's better, Ray Penn and Tommy Mason Griffin. I thought Ray Penn was the coldest basketball. I still think coldest basketball player. I thought he was better than Moochie Norris. Like when we were in 8th grade, I thought he was better than Moochie Norris, who was on the Rockets. But I remember one time I was at a party and Ray Penn said basically like, I can't keep coming to, I'm not doing this anymore because I have a future. I was like, yo, if I'm like, I was like, man, I have a future too. You know what I mean? Like, because the parties, like, they weren't getting shot up at that time, but people started joining, 7th, 8th grade, people started joining gangs, and like, so parties would end up with somebody getting whooped, somebody fighting somebody. I'm like, man, this is
Yeah.
gonna escalate into gunfire pretty soon. So, like if you have a future, if you feel like you have a future, it's probably the best to move around.
Anywhere there's underage drinking and twerking, there's definitely bound for so. That's like a recipe for some shit to go
Yeah,
wrong.
we definitely. I mean, it was like middle school, like early high school parties. We definitely weren't drinking, but there was twerking for sure, and just BS, like unsuper, like lack of supervision. And yeah, it is crazy to look back now and be like, wow, like people, I mean, it was like you said, like so, now that I think about folks who did kind of, unfortunately pass away, or a couple people who did were on the other side of a bully. Like it was fluky or just random or just just dumb. But I feel like we all like that's one thing I feel like everyone in Alief in that area, they have like some homie, some friend who's like locked up for a long time, behind some sort of violence of some sort. So it's always
Right.
good to the people who kind of made it. So what's it called? So what else? Yeah, so how'd you link up with Moneybag Yo and like I guess or Finesse 2 times, man? Like I feel like your selection of artists is all like you had a placement on 2K. Like I feel like you have like a selection of artists. It's like it's Monaleo, but then it's Finesse 2 times, and then it's Davido. Like it's kind of like I mean it's all kind of urban music. But how are you like how'd you connect with? I think the most random one is like Finesse 2 times because I know he signed to Junior, I think, right, Mob Ties or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So linking with finesse, actually came through Christian. So I got hired by Christian to clear like this tape that him and
Oh,
one
by
of
the way,
his
Christian, that's shout out Christian. That's I Hustle No Luck on Instagram. He's works. I guess Finesse's manager, I believe.
mm-hmm,
Another
yeah,
Alief person. I mean,
elite
Alief
veteran.
is like Lizzo, Rashard Lewis, Maxo. Oh, Toby, Nigwe. I mean, you, Toby. I guess I'll throw myself in there.
Calvin
I've college
Lauren, come
a
on,
little bit,
we
a
got
little bit.
we got some wins over there in A-Leaf, man. We got some
Yeah, we
wins.
have Alief has
The
pulled
list
this.
fucking goes on, actually.
Yeah, I mean Lizzo especially. It's like yo, like that's I mean she's a superstar.
Yeah, fact.
Um, but yeah, I mean yeah, Alief has really done
You
his
claimed
thing.
Beyonce too. She went to Elsit, did
She
she?
did. I feel like she might have, but she definitely shot a video. I was really thinking she shot a video at Funplex. So I almost just want to claim her off of that.
She went to
Um,
Elsit.
I
I
believe
believe
she did.
Beyonce went to an A-Leaf school
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
crazy. Yeah, I think she did. It says okay. Did Beyonce go to LSIC?
I think she went to Elsit.
Yeah, she also attended the High School for the Performing Arts and Visual Arts, and later Alief LSIC. Okay, so yeah, we could claim. Oh, we could claim Beyonce too.
Yeah, we
Oh
got
yeah, we're
Alief All Stars.
Alief All Stars for real, for real. That's incredible. But yeah, so like, yeah, so you linked up with so Christian hired you to.
With Christian, I was clearing a project for him, and then he ended up was working with Finesse, and so Finesse had like some like a little bit of issues with like some of his music and stuff out there. So I started working with Finesse. I heard of it, and I realized he was the one that made the Going Straight In song, and that was a song that they were playing all the time in Houston. I was like,
Oh
man,
yeah,
this is
all the time.
fire. And when I found out he was incarcerated, and he started really like telling me like, yo, I'm gonna be home soon. It's like I'm ready. I'm gonna come out. Try some heat. I was like, yo, I gotta work with this guy. And so like constructively through Christian, I started like working with Finesse a bit. And eventually, like once we're able to like, hash out all the conflict of interest or anything that could be a problem, I picked him up as a client and said, we end up doing one of the biggest deals of 2022. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, speaking of Finesse, I mean, obviously this, how do you? Because this is something that I've talked about with quite a few. Well, I'll talk about this with a couple. So I have an episode that I recorded with Jay Prince actually. But it was like in 2018. I'm a re-release. I never really, I did a short-lived podcast. I didn't have the Bolaji behind me back then. I did a short-lived podcast in 2018. I didn't really promote it or put it out. But I have one with Jay Prince. I talked to I don't know if you know George Cheedy. He's the journalist who's been talking about who's covering the YSL thing pretty closely.
Yeah.
He was on Vlad TV. But this is something I've talked about with a couple people. But like, how do you like the relationship between the streets and just like hip hop and the streets and all that? Because I feel like it's really turned up over the past few years. Like, I think for me, like, I remember in like I can't remember. I think it was like 2016. There's this dude Bugatti from Houston who was kind of local kind of artist from Alief, was hanging around with kind of rap a lot and stuff. He got shot, and I kind of I heard like at first I was like, oh, like I guess no one knows who did it because no one got arrested. And I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and he's like, oh, this person did it because of this reason and why, And then in 2018, we sadly had like Kenny Lou and Ghost get killed outside of Onyx, and not to word in the streets that it was tied to certain things. And so like, how do you like now that, I mean, obviously you're a suit, so you're not in there, but like as you deal with artists, how do you kind of, I mean, if you advise them or if you even just have conversations about, okay, like leaving that stuff behind, right? Because we've seen so many artists, Dolph, Mode 3. I mean, what's it called? What's his name? That song, Yellow Beezy, he survived obviously, but people who've been targeted. And so how do you like, and I guess you also grew up in H, so you kind of at least have a little bit of understanding. You were part of Kream, obviously, so you have an understanding of how that stuff works. So how do you kind of like, what's your perspective on that as this stuff kind of keeps happening?
Man, honestly, one thing I would say is that I'm fortunate enough to most of the artists that I deal with, like they've grown past the looking for street credibility phase,
Right.
right? Like they've already passed that. Like for instance, when I get on the phone and talk to somebody about Maxo is so on his CEO shit. Like Maxo
And
doesn't
his
get
fatherhood stuff and his fatherhood thing too.
Maxwell doesn't get on the phone and wants to like, oh man, fuck this nigga that's disturbed. Like he's not getting on the phone talking about that.
He's
Maxwell's getting
not.
on the phone is he's talking about a brand deal that he was doing. He's talking about a play that he wants to put together. He's talking about artists that he wants to sign. When I get on the phone with Finesse, Finesse has done his time. Finesse is talking about like how he can build wealth, how he can get his credit up, how he can acquire shit in the right way, and what could be like the next move for him to do, how he wants to
Well,
get
and
his
he squashed whatever that was going on with Moneybag, right? And they're like cool. So yeah.
even with Yo Gotti, I believe like all that shit like got squashed. So it's like I don't have really artists that are on that. Even Bobby Billions. Bobby Billions made a song with both three. Bobby Billions had his day and age where he was wild as a kid. But now he's also a father. He's still making bangers. Like, but he's not worried about the streets. So I don't really like that's not really something that comes as a problem for me, per se, when it comes to like dealing with like a lot of the artists that I work with, where there might be artists, producers, or even just creatives in general. So that's honestly not something that I really just like have too much of a problem with.
That's good. That's good. Because I think for me, like I got
Well,
into like the past few years, I've been listening to a lot of like 42 Doug and ESTG and Dirk. And I'm like, the music goes so hard, but I also know that there's like stuff behind it. And it's like, especially, when you hear about artists getting, I think Dirk had a shoot. I mean, he had a shootout at his crib. So it's like, I don't want to see these artists, I want these artists to live a long time. Right. So
but that whole Atlanta and Chicago culture is like different. It's like they like live and die with that shit. It's like they don't. I don't think they ever grow out of it.
yeah,
I don't.
sometimes like, yo, grow up. Like, like it's time, like leave that behind.
And then I think they also, and then another thing is like even with artists, like it could be bigger than them. Situational shit can happen just based on the people that's around them or based on the places that they are. Like
Yeah.
I think one of like the most eye opening things, or I don't even know what the exact words to use to describe it, that I saw this year. And it was someone speaking about like artists dying, and it was just basically saying like the artists, like they're not dying because that they're artists. They're dying because it's almost like he said, like they're out too late. It's like if you stay out till 3, 6 in the morning,
Man,
like
that's so
you're
true.
giving
That's
yourself
so
more of
true.
a chance of some shit
Like,
happening to you.
yeah, like rest in peace, Vaughn. Rest in peace, Vaughn. But it's like go home. Like, don't go to the next location sometimes. Like, just go home.
Yeah, it's like you make yourself available to some bullshit to happen to you.
Yeah. It's like sometimes the night is over. The night is just
Yeah,
over. Like you don't need to
exactly.
keep going to the next location, chasing the next
Exactly. And
the
that's
next move.
like someone like Finesse, like as hot and as demanded as I've seen this guy, like he doesn't fucking go to the club. I've
Well,
never.
I feel like once you start getting paid to go to the club, you probably don't go as much because you're like, all right, like I need to get a
That's
bag to do this.
that's fair. Even when I feel like he gets paid to go to the club, I think he's like in and out of that shit.
Yeah. I
Like
also feel like finesse. I also feel like and other artists too move more militant now.
yeah,
Like there's
that
certain artists who move real militant.
it's crazy that you say that because Finesse is the most militant moving individual.
Well, I know that he's actually been like from before because I believe the reason he went back he got locked up is because he he was in a shootout I believe and like it was like an unlawful whatever possession of a weapon. So like once you've been in shootouts and stuff, I have to imagine that you begin to move a lot more careful.
Yeah,
Because I feel like because I remember I ran to him at our friends shout out Edicon Exotic our friends exotic car rental dealership and all that, and I felt like he was very he was friendly but he was very sort of I could
yeah,
tell certain people are just more approachable than others, right?
yeah.
I'll never forget. I remember like Drake threw a private party at Dave and Buster's. And I kept like this. Somebody he looked like ESTG. I know ESTG like stays in Houston a lot, so I
Yeah.
thought it was ESTG, and it was. And he had like a like he had some people around him. But I remember like I wanted to like kind of walk up like yo, say hey, I really appreciate your music. And he has this line that like we in parties tripping. Please don't walk up asking for no pictures. And like I didn't ask for no picture, but I could just tell like the people around him were like, what I mean, he wasn't going for he wasn't in a mood to be friendly. What I mean? And I think certain people like they start to move a little bit more, just like. And
Yeah, there's
I
almost
urge,
discernment, as to who they're
yeah,
gonna let into their circle. Yeah,
and how
definitely.
they move. Like I urge every artist, honestly, like yo,
Be
you know,
militant.
be militant. Like I know everybody can't afford crazy security off the rip, but like it's such a
Guard
good
your life.
investment.
Guard
Yeah,
your life.
car, bulletproof. I mean, it's sad that that has to happen for certain people. And I think the other thing that you said sometimes it's out of their hands. I think another thing that happens too sometimes is that like certain things have just gone too far, right? Like I think that certain things just can't be squashed because there's already been it's gone to a certain level.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, so okay, we're gonna transition real quick because I feel like this is, I say that this is a stealth dating podcast because low key, like, dating is such a great topic because it's just evergreen. I don't know why Black Twitter, it's just Twitter in general, but Twitter loves talking about dating. Splitting the rent, $200 dates. We have, we're gonna have season 30 of The Bachelor, season, Love Island, Love Is Blind. So like, I know, I think one thing that's funny, especially in Houston, like being Nigerian is cool now. Like when we were young, we were the
yeah.
African booty scratchers,
We pledged for this shit that's going on
bro.
today, right?
We what we went through being African booty scratchers for, and people. I know people are like, oh, let it go. But I'm sorry, man. You had it. You know how it was when your teacher got to your name that first day of class or that substitute teacher. What was it like? I know you went through it, man. Come on.
First, it started with like Like the whole class already knew what time it was.
Bro,
You
you're just sitting there like, oh,
once you start hearing the sneaker in, you're like, man, fuck, And then the next thing that goes through your mind is like, okay, how can I pronounce my name in the most American fucking way ever?
yeah,
Like, how can I
Bolaji,
make Bolaji
Bolaji,
sound like Tim? Like,
bro.
that's like what's going on in your mind. So I'm like, okay, Bolaji, and then the teacher like fucks it up. But what? But what?
Bro, it's
And then the
funny.
whole class erupts in laughter.
Yeah, it is. It's hilarious. I feel like there's also there's some teachers like well like I like when the teachers powers through it. Like they just power through it because some teachers will do that thing like ooh, they start making those sounds like I'm gonna need help here. And it's like bro, just come on, just get it over with, bro. You're over here dragging this out, bro. Just do it already. Now it's the same way. Like how what's the yeah you're right, like what how can I make Damilare sound like Josh, right? So Damilare, so
Like, yo,
it is rough, but it's crazy now because now like I'm unfortunately single these days, and I'll like go out and women will like they'll know every word to last. Like they know, or they'll talk about I love jollof rice, and it's like who put you on a jollof rice? Or they'll be like I love egusi, and it's like wait what it's always black American women. They're like who like
yeah, it's crazy. Or they'll send you like a new Afrobeats record and ask you if you've heard it yet. I'm like,
bro, it's such a crazy transformation to see. Like we were really not it, and now
yeah,
like they love the music. I'm not hating. Look, I'm happy for it because like the more Afro beats gets listened to, the more Africans get paid, right? But it is such a wild thing to see, and sometimes I wish that the girls would just kind of pretend, be like, "Oh, what's jollof rice? I've never had that before. What's egusi?" But they
nah, TikTok fucked that whole thing up. Like once TikTok came around, like yo, there's no secrets to any like culture
bro.
anymore.
But it's not even just TikTok. Like they've all dated Africans before. They've all dated Nigerians before.
That's true. That's true.
Or they'll be like, "Yo, Nigerians love me." I'm like, "Bro, just like I want to be the first and last Nigerian you date. Like I'm not trying. Like I don't want to. Don't tell me how you love egusi and you like suya and like all this stuff." But
Yo, I'll tell you, this African guys out here is like they just like they're so stealth. They just get their hands on every girl that's just out there. It's like, damn, what's left for
yeah,
me?
it is. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Like you're not like they're always. It's just it happened a few different times where someone will be like, "Oh, have you had Nigerian food? African food? Oh yeah, I love jollof rice." Wait, what? Who, you love what? you, you yeah, that's how they
Yo,
talk about. I'm like,
you
wait,
know what?
what?
Always my test. I always ask them where did they try it, and there are just certain restaurants that an American girl just should not name. It's like if you tell me like you've had like Nigerian food from Amalazone, I'm just like, whoa.
Oh yeah, that's
Like,
extra. That's because I'm on. Oh, so Houston's funny because there's
you didn't
Nigerian
Uber Eats
restaurants.
that. Like, I'm like, you didn't
Yeah,
Uber Eats
no.
that.
Well, the thing is, there's Nigerian restaurants. You said they didn't Uber Eats that.
Yeah, for
Oh
sure they
yeah,
didn't Uber
exactly.
Eats
Oh,
that.
for
If it's
sure. I mean, the thing is, so for people who don't know, like Houston has like I mean, so Nigerians like the biggest populations in America is like Houston, Atlanta, and the DMV, like
yeah, DMV
Detroit,
for
man, and
sure.
like New York has some too, but not not
I
enough.
like the DMV. Yeah.
Yeah, they have crazy. They have a lot. It's crazy because there's definitely a consulate. Like you get your passport done in Atlanta and New York, but I don't think Houston not one for your Nigerian passport. But like Houston has so many. Like it sprung up. It started springing up like 10 years ago. I feel like, or maybe a little bit more. But like Houston has a bunch of Nigerian restaurants. Like the way you would go to McDonald's, they have Nigerian restaurants. And yeah, Amazon. You walk in, it smell. It's because some of the Nigerian restaurants are a little bit more Americanized, where it's like if it's like a sit, you sit down, it feels it might as well be like a Applebee's, but they just serve Nigerian food. But
Yeah.
Amalazone, you walk in there, you smell. It's like when your mom's cooking, when your mom is cooking fish, and it's like the whole house smells like Nigerian food, and you're
Back
just
to
like,
Lakers.
yeah, you can't have any friends over because it's just gonna be like, yo, why does your house smell like the jungle? But yeah, no, it is weird to watch the Nigerian stock just go up. Like it almost feels like there has to be a correction at some point because the stock has just been going up. Like I thought it was wild when WizKid was booming, and now like I mean, people know, like people talking about, oh, I want, I need, I want, Igbo and Shayo. Like people are really like, you
Yeah.
know,
Honestly, I don't think there'll ever be a correction because I
really, you
honestly
think? I mean,
I also like if you really think about it, like the West African culture has always been something that has always been appreciated, right?
That is so true if you think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I need Igbo Shai. I'm over here googling the lyrics. Like I'm like they know the lyrics more than I do. But yeah, you're right because like Brazil, like so they're like Brazil, and I think even Cuba, they like worship like Orisha. Like there's
yeah,
a West African. Like I remember
facts.
one time I was
It's so
listening to.
crazy that you know that.
Oh
That's
yeah,
very
no, they were like even I think 21 Savage. I don't know if he still does, but he years ago he was talking about how he worshipped Ifa, which is a
yeah,
West
which is like
African
West African guy, yeah.
yeah deity. And I think like I remember one time that blew my mind. I was listening to Paul Simon, and like Paul Simon, I think one of like the greatest artists of all time. Like Paul Simon and Garfunkel. He has a song on like his album. He has a song where he says, he sings about Ele Dumare, like the Nigerian, like the god
Yeah, yeah,
of and it's like this is a white. I mean, and Paul Simon's known for like because he recorded in South Africa during apartheid. Like he borrows elements of different lots of different cultures.
yeah.
But yeah, like to listen to like a white dude sing about Olodumare, like it's like whoa, that's incredible. So you're right. I think the culture has always been. If you go back, there's Fela Kuti, there's all these people. Oh, the
Yes.
Rhythm of the Saints. That's the song. That's the album and the song. It's called the Rhythm of the Saints. But he sings,
Okay.
he sings about it's crazy to me. Oh yeah, he doesn't just sing about Olodumare. He says Babalu Aye, and that's and also yeah, so it's very. He says Olodumare is smiling in heaven, and he says Babalu Aye spins on his crutches, which is like crazy to to think
Yeah,
about.
that's crazy. Yeah, I gotta go listen to that. I never even knew that. I gotta go listen.
I'll send it to you. I'm a big Paul Simon fan. But okay, so all that preamble. So what's your dating life? Because now you're booming. You got the like. I don't because you said you post a lifestyle so that people know if my lawyer gets it back, I can get it back. But that's also going to attract, especially in Houston, that's going to attract a certain type of woman. And so like, how do you engage? Because you're young, you're getting it. You have a career, you have a degree, more than one degree. So what's your, you like to trick? Like what's your, what's your style?
Yo, this is the end of this
This,
podcast.
yeah, I told you I end on dating, right? I bring it.
Okay, let me say this is what I always tell like women that I engage with. Like I'm not coming out the gate just on like no trick shit, right? And I think a lot of guys like today have fucked up the whole dating scene just
Oh yeah,
about
because they're going to Cabo the first date.
yeah. And there's nothing going to Cabo on the first date, like I've had some first dates in Cabo, like so there's like nothing wrong with that.
I
But
haven't.
I think it's just like I think it's just like a way of going about it, right? I'm more so like I like dealing with women that are not just always asking, ask, oh, I need, I
Yeah,
don't like
it's like a liability at that point. It's like a
yeah,
dependent.
exactly. I don't like dealing with all that shit. So that's a big thing for me. And then it's another thing, like I like dealing with women that can stand on their own. If you're able to stand on your own, like I don't mind when we go out to eat and the tab comes out and it's like $300 because I feel like shit, you could have possibly paid for it yourself as well.
Yeah,
So I'm
300.
not
That's a light meal. That's a light meal for you. I've been out with you and Edicon. That's a light meal. 300.
man, for two people, man, come on, bro. Hey, don't say things like this on this podcast, Davilari. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just joking. I'm just
It's
joking.
like 48 nights, man. That shit is crazy. Once the
Yeah,
bill
a
comes, like
48 baby, a 48
500
baby.
in, shit, wow.
Yeah,
Like, this
yeah.
is crazy.
Shout out to all the
Honestly,
40. Shout out to all the 48 babies out there, like Drake
shout out
said.
to all the 48 babies, man.
But yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, it's weird. I think that
Yeah.
yeah,
I think we all trick in a certain type of way. And at the end of the day, if we're just being real, like yo, men work hard all their lives to do what? To live a good quality life and spend their money on women.
I
Like,
feel that. Assuming straight men. But yeah, I agree. I think that because we might have some gay listeners. But I think yeah, I don't know. I think that like I think that the tricking thing, like I think that I joked that the City Girls kind of gave birth to Kevin Samuels, like rest in peace, because I feel like there's that whole idea of like, yo, you gotta swipe a Visa, you gotta buy a Birkin, whoop de whoop. And I think that a lot of that mindset started creeping into everybody's head. And Kevin Samuels came and said, yo, that's for certain people. Like if
Yeah,
he'll be like, yo, like you got, and he'll say to man and woman too, but he'll be like, yo, if you got, 5 baby daddies and you weigh 300 pounds, like that's not, the city girls music isn't really for you. But I think that, that like that whole ethos makes people feel like you have to trick and you have to go to Cabo on the first date. But if you
yeah.
really, like, I've seen girls be heartbroken over just like normal like regular dudes, right? Like I think that, I'm not saying I'm not regular, but like I think that, like, I've seen people, like, I think that there's this kind of mindset now sometimes where it's like you gotta you gotta buy the girl, right? Like you
Yeah.
gotta do all this, and it's like low key, man. Girls, if you're just nice, if you're funny, like a girl will like you just off of like if you're nice, if you're funny, you have something going for yourself.
So I think honestly what it is, I think it's if you're just gonna be yourself and if you are truly at peace and understanding with who you are as like a human being, I think that's the most important part in like understanding how to navigate with like certain with like any woman. I think for me it's like yeah, like shit. I'm not gonna buy you the fucking Birkin, but shit, I'll take you out for a fucking good time. Like shit, like we'll go to nice restaurants. If I'm in the mood for a trip, like we'll take a fucking trip. Like we will like enjoy like great. We'll have great experiences together. But that doesn't involve me like fucking buying you $5,000 Van Cleef bracelets.
Yeah,
And
and I think I think that like also the group of girls who really get that treatment, like, oh, I'm like, it's like 30 of them. You know what I mean? It's all the same. It's like the same girls with the same rappers and the same athletes. Like I think I've seen beautiful women like a guy just who has a job and is cool, and like I think that social media and Instagram make it seem, because I get that in my own head sometimes, like, do I have to start like buying people Chanel? And it's like, no, I really don't. Like
real. The pressure is real.
yeah, but
Like when
if you step out of social media, it's really like, bro, girls, because first of all, it's not even that many men, especially black men, who can do those type of things, right? Like it's like a small number of men who can do those things, and a small number of women who receive it. Like it's the same 30 women that we all see on the Shade Room. Also, shout out Angie. I interviewed her for the podcast too. Shout out her, but the founder of the Shade Room. But I think that like it's easy to get caught up in social media and like music, where it's like, I gotta be, you know, I gotta be doing all this crazy stuff, and people go out and crash out trying to do crazy, trying to do things for money. Where it's like, yo, like if you're cool, if you're like confident in yourself, if you have something halfway going for you, you can find a nice woman who is beautiful and who's cool and who, is still is gonna like you for you. Like you don't have to, you know, come out the gate just with something crazy. But okay, where can I guess so what are you working on now? Like what's next for you? You have this, you want to do this JV, which I'm sure by the time this comes out, the conglomerate will have assembled.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Conglomerate Collective, man.
yeah,
That's that's the management company that I've been like scaling up. I also want to take the restaurant. That's really like my mom's baby. I'm really trying to take it to like a whole different scale. So right now, I really want to move to like a brick and mortar. And eventually build it up to a restaurant group. To where we can have
Yeah,
different.
shout out. So Doopsy's Kitchen, 4.7 stars on Google reviews, which is very high. Located downtown Houston, 2616 Blodgett Street, Houston, Texas, 77004.
Yes.
11 a.m. Well, you can see the hours online, but usually open. It's closed on Sunday, but pretty much open the rest of the week. But if I went there, it's because I grew up eating Nigerian food, so I went there. Actually, brought a friend too. Got some fire jollof rice. Got some, it's got some fire meat, some fire soup. So all you women who are over here eating our food, which we're happy about on all these days, and all these men who are taking all these women on these, to eat Nigerian
I
food.
know the skills.
Yeah, I mean, go out there. Yeah, that's dope. I mean, do a business with your mother. That's like a dream. Like I'd love, that's something
Yeah,
that I think people dream about. No,
honestly,
that's
it's
lit.
been the most exciting thing I've ever worked on in my whole life. I've worked on a lot of different shit. I've like worked a lot of different businesses, but honestly, like just watching this whole business come to life, and food is like a passion for my mom, and it's just been doing it for like the last 27 years, and being able to like assist her in establishing her own thing, that we could make ours and we could pass down for different generations, things that my kids would eat off of, things that my kids would eat off of, just based on like the foundation of like what I know that I'm capable of building it into. So it's like
Yeah.
with my mom's whole restaurant experiences and with my ability to actually like do business and to scale businesses. I'm just super excited to see like where it goes. Like we're almost 6 months into it right now.
Oh, that's a lot of success in 6 months. I was going to ask you next, how long has it been? Because I know I saw it pop up, kind of like stealth mode a little bit,
Yeah.
and so.
And so that was like a big part of it for me. I honestly never wanted anyone to ever know that it was a part of
It
that I
was
was a
yours,
part of
right?
this kitchen.
Was it you didn't think they would be able to be honest, or like what was like about the food? Like what was the
Oh,
reason?
I honestly just wanted people to love the restaurant for itself. I didn't want them to be able to attach the restaurant to whatever identity I might have or I've had in the past. And I just really wanted them to be able to fall in love with the concept in itself. And then I also want to play on the idea of like, the curiosity. The cat is always going to be
Yeah,
curious
a
by
little
yeah,
unknown. Yeah,
they're gonna
I
run
feel
around
that.
trying to chase and see.
And is your mom's name Doopsy? Or is that
No, so her name is Victoria, and
okay?
well, her Yoruba name is Dupe, and
Oh, okay.
the nickname that she has growing up was Doopsies. So
Yeah.
my mom named the restaurant and everything. Like I always tell people honestly, like that's my mom's thing. Like I'm just a person in the back office that just make sure everything works. I process payroll, like I work, I do the groundwork, I do the marketing, I
I
make
feel
sure,
you. I feel
I
you.
make sure like this is like we're doing real business. But when it comes to the food, the quality of the food, the work, like the whole running of the establishment, like it's like that's my mom's like that's like
Her
her
baby.
hand, like
Yeah, I mean, she's lucky she has a Nigerian name, because I remember she has an English name. Because I used to wish I had
yeah,
I wish I had an English name when I was little.
it's fucking crazy, yo.
I know. I try to make one up for myself. I think I want to go by like Justin or something, because I was like, I just got tired of it. Like they get to my name. Also, my name's at the end, towards the end. My last name is
Yeah.
like, yeah. I ain't having no Africa. Oh, okay.
I couldn't make an American name out of Bolaji. I couldn't
You
think
said
of it.
Billy. Oh, bro, that's one thing I love. Actually, I respect us. I respect us for sticking with it, because I remember you'll meet Africans who be like, "Yo, my name is like Ogogua Chuameka, whatever," but you can call me Josh. Yeah, you could call me you could call me, yeah, you could call me Charles. Like, no, your name is Chukwemeka. Like, yo,
And it's always funny because it's like you've known this kid since you were a freshman, and then senior year comes around and you're looking at something like, wait, you're African? What the
he's like, wait, where you get Chuck from? Your name is Chukwemeka. Like, your
fuck?
name is not Charles, bro.
And
That's
it's,
real. All right.
it's easy for the Africans that didn't even grow up in Nigeria because they have like American accents and everything.
Yeah,
And they're already on game. It's crazy,
yeah.
like, the whole, like, in the West, like, when we were growing up, the whole, like, chopping on people, like,
Oh yeah.
that was, like, a big culture, like, when we were, like, kids.
Oh, I mean, and that would cause a lot of fights. I remember when I moved to Fort Bend, like I got chopped on, but like we were chopping. This man was like, "Oh, he called you out." We had to go to the bathroom and fight just over some dry like chopping.
I got demoted 2 grades when I moved to America based on somebody chopping on me. I didn't know what was going on. I grew up in a Nigerian school system where if somebody makes fun of you, you slap them and shit. If
Oh,
the
you
teacher,
slapped him? Yeah, for
yeah,
the people, I know people who are out of Texas. Chopping. We say chopping. That's like making fun of. I'm chopping on you. And yeah,
so
getting chopped on was not fun, because it
that was
just
not fun. There was like a kid making fun of me on my first day of school in America. And I was just like, yo, what? I was sitting at lunch, I'm eating, and he's like making fun of me. Everybody at the table is laughing. I just turned to the side and I just like slapped. I
you
like
slap
slapped it
fire.
so dirty. I had no idea the teacher was standing right behind me while I slapped him.
It's actually dope. Like, it's funny 'cause I feel like people would, like, every time Africans like, "Oh, y'all used to call us African booty scratchers," people will be like, "Let it go." And like, I feel like we joke about it, but it is dope to see like you, Toby, like just Maxo, different people just shining and really glowing up, because I'm like, we really had it. Like, dog, it was dark, bro. It was dark. I had a friend. I don't know if you know my friend Steven, Steve. He said he used to tell people he was Jamaican. Like that's how bad it was, bro. Like he would just say, "I'm Jamaican."
A lot of Africans used to tell people they were Jamaican. Like this
I
shit
didn't
was
even know
bad.
that. He was the first person. He told me that like a few months ago. He was the first person. I was like, yeah. I was like, why didn't I do that? That's like, it was bad, dog. Like we would get made fun of bad. But oh yeah, I guess last thing before you tell people where they can find you. I feel like obviously our Africans, our parents are like now starting to they want grandkids, they want us to get married and stuff. And I feel like we're in that age range. I feel like I just looked up, like, I don't know, I feel like everybody had a secret meaning to get in relationships, bro. Like, I feel like all of a sudden, like everyone, you hit that kind of age range, like 28 to 32, and you look around and it's like, whoa, like people are like kind of dropping like flies. And it's another thing I feel like it started like, it used to be cool, like having hoes used to be cool. And I feel like over the past like 18, like the last year and a half, like, let's say like last year or two, having hoes became like very uncool. Maybe it's just me, but does it feel like that to you?
I think it's just
Okay, maybe I just feel some internal pressure, bro. I don't know what it is, bro. I feel like people starting to really settle down.
honestly, I feel like the older I get, the less I trust women. So it's like I think I start having too many experiences, and then they start doing like you start seeing like a little bit of like the repeated behavior, or like you get like little hints and bits of things like this, and that's not to say that like I will just completely never trust anybody in the future. But I think just for me, and that's not to say like, I just have like a big Rolodex of hoes that I have, like in my back pocket. But I just feel like for certain people, is you're just kind of like just going with the flow and seeing what happens.
And I
So it's
also feel like when you're focused on building something too, like you're focused on building. I mean, sometimes like it's good to have a partner with you, but
yeah,
sometimes when you're focused on your career and building something, it is
yeah.
hard to devote energy to another person.
And sometimes a lot of women don't understand that. It's like they want you to be able to talk to them all day, text them all day. It's like, yo, I can't fucking do that. It's like
You
I'm
got you
taking.
got finesse 2 times on one line. You got Maxo on the other
I've
line.
been on this podcast. I've honestly missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phone calls.
Wow, see that's love. I see.
One
I
was,
want to say. All right, so
yeah,
wait. Yeah, well, let people. First of all, I appreciate it because your time is very valuable. But let people know where they can find you.
man, you guys can find me on Biscuit.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
I was like,
I think I'm on all social media
yeah,
at Bolaji ESQ. If you can spell Bolaji correctly, it's
yeah.
Bolaji. ESQ, no spaces, no underscores, no nothing. Yeah, and
Wait, did you live on Bissonnette? I lived on when I
I
first
live
moved. I lived by Leeseman, like on Senat, and I guess Derry, whatever. I guess wherever Leeseman is. And
okay.
I moved like Alief, Claudine, and Derry Ashford. But where
Okay.
were you on?
So for me, when I first moved to America, I lived right in front of Outley Elementary. So that was
Oh,
like
okay.
Richmond, and I think that's West Park. It's not, no, not West Park. It's Richmond and Derry Ashford. Yeah, I lived on Richmond and Derry Ashford, and then we moved to right across from Funplex. So that was Elder.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you were there when Adventure Bay was there.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah, yeah.
R.I.P. Adventure Bay, man. I
RIP Adventure
love the
Bay.
Adventure Bay. Yeah, we lived on like Beach Nut. Basically, off at first we moved over with some family friends. Steve, man, my boy Steve, his family for a little bit. Me and my mom, Beach Nut and Eldridge. Then we moved to like Derry Ashford and Highway 6. But anyway, we're boring people with our A-Leaf talk. But shout out the West. Shout out you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Shout out
When
to
this
you.
podcast gets a million billion downloads, I'm gonna come to you to get the deal done. Make sure I get those those good deal. Barstool, Spotify, The Ringer, Revolt, Complex. Come
So
holla at me.
all the brand licensing, everything, the ads. We're gonna work it all out.
Yeah,
We'll
and
get
all
like
you artists, you heard that earlier. He got somebody up from 100 to 350, then another 100 on publishing. So come to this man. If you need somebody, if your record label's not talking to you nice, I think I know who to talk to. So I appreciate you. Thank you for the time.
let's get you paid, man. Thank you so much, Diamond Lara. I appreciate you, brother. For real, it's love.
Love. All right, that was Bolaji. So hope you enjoyed that. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, join the Patreon. Just support the podcast in any way you can. Follow me on everywhere at Dsonoiki, DSONOIKI, Shonoiki. And the podcast at Not Industry Pod on Instagram, Not Industry on TikTok. And yeah, just stick around.